This is Lewis Up for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store. Always delighted to be with Frank Smith on Zoom on in the nice weather behind you of LA ahead of a massive week. Other than that, how's things, mate? All good?
All good, mate. All good. Good to be in LA. Massive week, Riyadh season. It all kicked off on Sunday night. I thought Crawford might chin Eddie.
Yeah.
You know, I was sort of stepping back just out the way, but no, big week ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to hear, mate, and all the better for speaking yourself. But yeah, I suppose we'll get into it. It's a big week. Terence Crawford takes on Israil Madrimov ahead of a stacked card of some great fights. Obviously, on a matchroom point of view, you've obviously got Andy Cruz back out. Great fight in Jared Anderson and Jarrell Miller, Jared Anderson, Martin Bakole, Jarrell Miller, Andy Ruiz. So yeah, excited for a massive fight, and obviously M&M as well for a big fight on UK shores. US shores.
Yeah, 100%. Look, it's probably one of the biggest. We've said it a few times, but the biggest US shows from top to bottom, that's ever been seen, and with, like you say, a little dusting of M&M on top as well. But Israil Madrimov, who's my guy, he's going to go and do the job on Terence Crawford in that main event. It's going to be a lot of people were writing him off. I compared it a little bit to when Dimitri Bivol fought Canelo Alvarez. Although a lot of these guys aren't as well known globally, Israil Madrimov is a superstar in Uzbekistan, as are all the other fighters we work with there. And I think this is going to be one of the hardest fights of Terence Crawford's career. Don't get me wrong, he's obviously very good, but I think Madrimov's going in there to upset him. Amazing undercard, as you say. Andy Ruiz, Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller looks in unbelievable shape. Lost 50 odd pounds, I think. Yeah. Kind of unrecognisable. I saw him in the hotel yesterday. Andy Ruiz, just his second fight, and I think he's had 2 fights in 4 years. He's been out the ring for 2 years, and I think that could play a part in that fight. I think Jarrell Miller could do a job there. Jared Anderson, Martin Bakole is a tremendous fight, like you say. I think Martin Bakole beats Jared Anderson as well. Andy Cruz, our man's back out. Everyone's talking about him. He's got huge potential to go and win a world title in the next year. It's just his 4th fight now. Another step up, so excited to see him back out. David Morrell's on the card as well. Ziad Al Mayouf, and then we had the weigh-in today as well for the Wednesday night. So tomorrow night show at the Santa Monica Pier, which we were at last night, looking round. It's going to be quite special doing an event on there. Mark Castro headlines that against Acosta. That's a real tough fight. Shakram Giyasov, who's the WBA number 1 in the 147-pound division, he's on the card. And Nathan Lugo as well. So just an added bonus as well on fight week of another show, just to keep everyone entertained.
Absolutely. I just wanted to touch on that actually. Tomorrow night, obviously, you mentioned there about Castro and Giyasov. Obviously, your fighters and Nathan Lugo as well, who are all out. An interesting concept, I guess. After there's a lot of people who are quite critical of public workouts and sort of their meaningful in boxing. But yeah, I suppose it's good to have like a couple of fights as well sprinkled on top of that as well, and the meaningful fights as well with Castro and Giyasov on your perspective.
Yeah, 100%. Real fights, real fights. Nathan Lugo is very talented as well. Come through. I think he just signed with Queensbury. But yeah, exactly. That's what Riyadh season doing and his excellency. They just go that extra step. When have we ever seen it? As you say, people question open workouts. The fighters a lot of the time don't really want to be there. On Wednesday fight week is the reality. But this is just an added bonus, and people, can tune in. People can come down to Santa Monica Pier. It's going to be a spectacle as always.
I did want to ask you actually about that video that's gone viral of Crawford and Eddie. Crawford saying that Matchroom's best champion or Eddie's best champion is Ricky Burns, and he hasn't achieved more than AJ, which was an example that Eddie used. What did you get to make of that whole interaction between the two? Because obviously, Eddie, you obviously believe in your man, but it was all obviously a little bit joking. Some good banter shown there from the two.
Yeah. Like I think the relationship, I think Crawford likes Eddie. We've worked with him a lot. We obviously did that Ricky Burns fight many years ago when he wasn't the name he is today. We had Julius Ndongo when he boxed in Omaha. When Crawford headlined there, sold out. That was a big night for Terence Crawford as well. And yeah, we've always had Amir Khan when he fought Crawford. We worked with Amir Khan on that show. So we've done a lot of work around Terence's career with with opponents, and I think like I say, the relationship's good. I think there's respect there. Eddie, as always, just making a few jokes. The British sarcasm sometimes gets lost as well. But yeah, it's all good. Look, Madrimov and Crawford throughout this build-up, and will continue for the rest of this week. There's no it doesn't have to always be sort of bad blood or hate there. It's a great fight, and sometimes great fights, you don't always need that other element of it. And I think that's what Crawford is a tremendous fighter. Arguably pound for pound top fighter in the world right now, but like I say, Israil Madrimov, he's coming for his opportunity. He's sort of overlooked in many ways. And he's not in any way overlooking the task at hand, but I think he's not really getting the respect from a lot of people, because outside of the hardcore boxing fans, and I go back to Chris Mannix, was someone who said in an interview, this is going to be the hardest fight of Terence Crawford's career. And I believe that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing you mentioned there, Frank, that stuck out to me, and I said it to actually various sort of friends yesterday, was that you get sort of Canelo Bivol vibes almost from this. And I'm sure you remembered on fight week of that fight where Bivol was almost not, I wouldn't say unknown, but this guy who had yet to strike up a real marquee win, which you could say about Israil Madrimov. And you had Canelo, who was coming off a great streak just after knocking out Caleb Plant to become undisputed. Almost the same with Crawford. He become undisputed. He's moving up in weight like Canelo was. So funny how almost like all the stars are aligned. And obviously Madrimov and Bivol are both from the same team as well. So it's almost too much of a coincidence on Saturday night in your favour.
Yeah, look, I think it's more about sometimes the commercial or the star profile doesn't always follow the ability, and people don't know the history of these Uzbek fighters that we work with. Him, Shakram Giasov, Emjak Medeliev, Jalalov, who's signed to top rankings in the Olympics currently. They're amazing fighters. They grow up, and it's all they want to do is become fighters. When you go to Uzbekistan with them, we've been lucky enough to do 2 shows there. Like I say, they are superstars. Turn up at the airport, there's people there, waiting for them everywhere they go. And they're sort of built for this. This is his sole focus, Israel's sole focus. He's not in any way nervous in a sense of he's been involved in big events, and it doesn't, I don't think the scale of the event phases him. He just wants to go in there and do a job. It's like any other opponent. He's going in against the best, but I think that will bring out the best in him. So, yeah, I think in many ways, because he's not a name that's hugely recognised, you get people writing you off. But, hopefully the stars align and we can get another champ. Well, he's already a champ, but, he can stay undefeated.
Yeah, hopefully so. One thing I do want to ask you about, Frank, and there was a tweet that Matchroom put out a couple hours ago now, of the photos of Jarrell Miller and Eddie Hearn. No, you can't read too much into a photo, but it did seem a bit sort of joyful and happy between the pair. It's been pretty open there, obviously, what Jarrell Miller's done and Eddie's reaction to that. I suppose when you see now them being friendly, I guess, and Eddie sort of taking almost to a liking to it, do you think it's fair for people to make an observation that it's quite poor taste considering everything that happened with Jarrell Miller?
Well, I think everyone, a lot of things have been said over the years by both sides. Eddie said a lot of things, but the reality is times change and people's view changes. I think, Eddie possibly on multiple occasions said he probably wouldn't work with Jarrell Miller again. And we're here and we're working together, obviously Riyadh season card, but he's obviously been through his process. He served his time. He boxed Daniel Dubois back in December as well. So it's one of those things. I'm sure there's been lots of contradictions along the years, especially in boxing, where things are said and you go, I'm never going to work with that person again. Never going to deal with that person again. And the reality is, I think you just have to step back and get on with it, because boxing's just one of those businesses where, like I say, Eddie, I'm sure, has said a lot of things, but times change. really.
Okay. Is there a right to have a concern though? I know Jarrell Miller fought Daniel Dubois, obviously, and there was sort of concerns there. But when you see him still having opportunities at top level and earning good money, considering the fact this is a guy who failed, not just it wasn't like an adverse finding. The guy was like a walk-in. Before the AJ fight, the guy was like a walk-in pharmacist. To see him have opportunities at top level, um, is it a bit of a concern for sort of the sport?
I think that's where it comes to the process of these things and how, at what point is someone guilty, innocent? At what point are they allowed to box again? If there's a centralized governing body who make a decision and something was put in place to say, right, if you ever failed a drugs test, and everyone has different opinions on this, by the way, you never box again. They were the rules. We're working in a sport where, look, he's served time. Like again, and I've said things before about not working with Jarrell Miller myself, but at the same time, we're in a sport where there is no set rules. There's people that have failed drugs tests and boxed 2 months later. There's people that have failed drugs tests, been banned for 6 months for something serious, and then come back like nothing ever happened. There's no real. There's certain people who is forgotten about. Have been through like Ryan Garcia. The idea that he failed a drugs test, I don't think anyone ever talks about it. And like, I'm not saying, by the way, he's wrong or he was guilty, but there's different views for different people. And obviously, we've made, like I say, I've probably made comments about Jarrell Miller in the past, but we're in a sport where he's free to box. And the commissions he's boxed with this will be with the Californian Commission. He boxed on the Saudi card, which with the British Boxing Board of Control. These are the most sort of respected commissions in the sport of boxing. So do you get where I'm coming from? Like, unless there's some kind of centralized body that decides, right, moving forward, these are the rules. This is what it is, and then everyone has to would follow that.
Do you think there should be? Do you think there should be a centralized body?
100%. I think there should be a centralized body for boxing for all matters. Whether it be judging and improving judging. I spoke about it yesterday. Like, you ruin a fighter's life. And the same with doping. It's a serious matter. But yeah, look, I think many things have been said, and times change people, don't they? And people and positions change, and things change. So you can point back to a lot of things that have been said, not just about doping, but a whole range of things, and say, wait a minute, you said this about this person, you're now working with them. It's happened, time and time again. But yeah, on that point, 100% there should be a centralized body in boxing.
Yeah. Okay, completely fair enough. I did want to move on away from this week's antics. There was news today come out. Jack Catterall against Regis Prograis is off. Before I guess get into the injury, so the first question I had is August 24th. Is there still going to be a show on August 24th?
We're working through it all now. We're working through it all. It's all very fresh. We're obviously here in the US, 8 hours behind, working through a lot of details and hoping for some news very soon.
Okay. And I suppose as for the injury, a bit of a gutting one for the debut of the Carp Arena has to get delayed a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're working with the venues, etc., to try and get something out there and hoping to, look, we were excited to do something at the Carp Arena, and I'm sure we will. But it's just about with this process, it's about aligning, with the fighter to making sure they're medically clear and ready to fight. Then you got to get the venue. Then you got to get the broadcast. You got to fit amongst all your other dates that you've been planning. So there's lots that goes into it. Hoping in the next few, 24 hours or so, we'll be able to get some news out there.
Yeah. So, and obviously, Mike Commager reported that it wasn't too much of a concern of injury for Jack Catterall. So the idea is to rebook that in October, sort of September, October time. Would you say?
Maybe not September, but we're working towards October, maybe a little bit later. But that's what we're pushing for now.
Yeah, completely fair enough. Another guy who is going to be in Los Angeles this weekend is Ben Shalom. The back and forth between yourself is obviously it's been public, and I says it's been reignited this sort of in the last couple of days. You've done an interview with the Stomping Ground where you spoke about the sign of Eubank Jr. And you called it sort of Ben being desperate to deliver for Sky and saying that he hasn't delivered for the past 3 years. I asked Ben about these comments yesterday, to which he responded that He said, listen, a lot of promoters were very desperate and they've done everything they could to sign Eubank Jr. He didn't exactly say Matchroom, but sort of, I guess the idea would be that he was talking about Matchroom in that, and that he said that after the signing of Eubank Jr., you become very bitter, and he thought that you were friends. Yeah, so I guess you just a reaction to what Ben said about you. I guess you being again bitter about the sign of Eubank Jr. to boxer.
No, I don't look. I think personally, I'm not going to be his mate. He's not my kind of person. I've been very open about that.
Yeah,
it'd be strange if he wanted to be my friend with the things I say about him. Doesn't mean I can't do business with someone. There's a lot of people. I've said it a million times that I'm friends, but I'll do business. It's a tough sport, boxing. You're not always going to be friends with people. And yeah, that is what it is. I'm sure I'll see him out here. I'm not. I'll say hello, but my view is my view. He's going to have to try hard to change that. And I have the same view of a lot of people in boxing. A lot of people in boxing don't like Ben Shalom. We'll do a poll one day and we can see. But I think the thing about being bitter, not about being bitter, I had multiple conversations with his team. I didn't do, I didn't go to the extent that he did in terms of what the deal was. Where I say being desperate, I don't mean for Eubank Jr. It's great for Chris. Happy days for Chris. Like when you're in a position where someone desperately needs something, amazing. So I'm not saying about Chris, like he's had a touch, because he can go and do what he wants. He can do his own deals with people. Like we're talking about the Conor Ben fight. I don't have to deal with Ben Shalom. I deal with his management team on it.
Okay, yeah.
So he can do whatever he wants, but he gets the security of fights with boxer. Happy days. Good luck. But other promoters aren't in that position. We're not in a position where we have to go, right, Chris, we're going to sign you to keep you active, but we're not going to be involved in the process of making big fights. That's the reality of the city. When I say about being desperate, you'll give up certain things that other promoters wouldn't. We're not in that position. We've got a great business. We're promoting 40 shows a year, delivering week in, week out. We're in a different space. So, it's, I don't know, he can, he say bitter. I don't really get bitter. I'm not a jealous person. But yeah, it's all fun and games. We'll see him. See if he calls me bitter when I see him.
I was going to say, is it going to be an awkward interaction when you do see him? Maybe in a few days.
Louis, I'm the most unawkward person you could ever meet in your life. Honestly, nothing really bothers me. Like, boxing's a crazy world, and if you let things bother you in this sport, you'd go absolutely mental. So I'll say hello. If he calls me bitter, I'll give him some home truths, and then we'll get on with it.
Completely fair enough. Just a final topic from myself. I guess almost sticking on the topic of boxer, you could say, or boxer fighters. Joe Opetaia went on DAZN on the Justice Hooney fight last week, and he talked about $1 million offer to Chris Billam-Smith. He's been pretty open that he wants that fight. Said he's willing to take 250 grand from his purse to make that fight. I guess from your position, do you think that the Billam-Smith unification is ideally next?
It would be great. I don't think it's going to happen next. I think there'll be another fight next, not because of Joe Opetaia. And look, I don't necessarily again, if you're looking on the other angle and you're representing Chris Billam-Smith, are you saying jump in with Joe Opetaia, who has shown what he is, in terms of, I get on really well with Chris Billam-Smith. I was with him a few weeks ago. I really like him as a person. So I think if you're representing him and there's other routes you can go down and make money and other fights, I get it completely, So I think it's just a case of him looking for whatever's best for Chris Billam-Smith, just like Joe Opetaia will do the same. Thing is with Joe Opetaia, he'll literally fight anyone tomorrow. I'm not saying Chris Billam-Smith wouldn't do that, but obviously if you're if you're delivering for him, which like the McGuigans would be, they're saying, right, I'd rather go this route, but he's not going to shy away from, as a personality, I just don't see it, but he's going to look at, there's going to be fights he'd prefer, I'm sure. And I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Frank, as always, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. I always do appreciate you taking time to speak to me. And yeah, I guess have a good time in LA for however long it lasts. It's going to be an exciting one, that's for sure, man.
Cheers, mate. Good to catch up, and
That's it.
I'll see you soon.
Yeah, top man. See you soon, mate. Take care. See ya.